Hey everyone, my name is David Rao and I'm the music teacher who blogs at makemomentsmatter.org. You can also find my ideas on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and a variety of other places when you search for my name, David Rao, or Make Moments Matter. Usually I come and share ideas on Monday night, but I'm in my classroom and I wanted to share some ideas from my classroom, some ideas about how I use instrument families to help with classroom management, to help with organization, how I get that started, why I do that, and sort of how I make that work in my classroom. And I thought it'd be great to share from my classroom and show you some of those ideas. So that's my plan. I'm going to go through and do that in just a second. Last time I did this, for some reason the sound cut out. So if the sound stops, please leave a message letting me know. And if you're watching now, please let me know if you can hear me. It's because for some reason the sound just randomly went away. But if you're listening now, if you could say hey, I can hear you, or thumbs up or something, that'd be super helpful. Otherwise, I'm just going to assume, hey, it's working, and go on. Anyway, I wanted to share, so in my classroom, I use the instrument families all the time. I refer to them all the time, and there are a couple reasons for that. Part of it is I want to talk about the curriculum. I want it to be really familiar, but also I want to use that for classroom management and for organization in my classroom. So all of my classes, I teach kindergarten through fifth grade. All of my classes, second, third, fourth, and fifth, not kindergarten or first, but my top 4 grades, I break every class down into 4 teams. And I name them after the instrument families. So percussion, woodwinds, brass, and strings. And all of my classes on basically day 2 of the school year, they learn what family they're going to be a part of for that year. And so then I teach that to them on the second day. I'm going to show you some of the games and things in a second that I use to help them learn that and reinforce that. But why do I do that? So anytime I need to do a folk song or a game or something that needs groups, I already have preset groups, so I'm not scrambling to be okay, you 5 people in a group and you 6 people, or I'm not listing off names. I can just say okay, strings and percussion over here, brass and woodwinds over here. Or I can say if you're in strings, find a partner in woodwinds. If you're in brass, find a partner in percussion, or whatever. It's just a sort of a shorthand, quick way for me to make new groups, put people in groups. It's also really helpful if you want to have centers, or if you're doing small groups, something like that. I already have 4 groups of my class. If I want to make smaller groups that'll rotate, I just take strings and do strings group 1, strings group 2, or percussion group 1, percussion group 2. I can break them down. So then instead of 4 groups, I have 8. And it makes things just a little bit easier. How do I make those groups at the beginning of the year? Well, I use this very scientific method where I just take a roster and I have the first kid and then I skip 3 kids and then I do the next kid and I skip 3 kids and do the next. So basically every 4th kid will be strings, no, strings, no, strings, no. And then I'll do brass, no, brass, no, brass. So it's just sort of random, honestly. You could spend a lot of time getting very strategic about, okay, these kids don't work together. These kids, I don't know, and really spend a lot of time on it, but that takes a lot of time. I've done both ways. I've done a couple of years where I was super duper strategic about which groups I put together, and then I've also done years where I just sort of randomly every 4th kid is strings, and I just go through and mark it off that way. Either way, you find errors or problems or kids who don't work well, and if you need to regroup, that's totally fine, and I do that. But I just go through and just sort of mark, randomly, 1st kid, 5th kid, whatever, strings. Next time I go through 2nd kid, 6th kid, whatever, is percussion. Next time, I just go through and do it that way, sort of randomly. There are a couple of things where I am specific. If I have a kid who has a paraprofessional who comes in, or a special need or something, I usually put them in the front row, which I'll show you my class in just a second, but I put them in a certain group. So here, I actually just show you right now. So not only is it the groupings, but if you see these 4 lines, green line, blue line, red line, yellow line, each one belongs to one of the instrument families. So when you sit with your family group, you'd sit on that certain line. So I put kids who have a paraprofessional or need preferential seating in the front row. If they have an auditory need, or they just need to be in the front or whatever, I put them in percussion, and it makes it easier for me to remember. And then also I can make sure, like, I have a chair by the spot where the kid who needs a para would be, so the para can have a seat on a chair if they want or whatever. So it makes it just a little bit easier. I also, when I go through, if I have two kids who have the same name, so there are a couple classes where I have two Sophies, Sophie R, Sophie J, whatever, or like Braden R, Braden L, Braden M, Braden T. You know, like if you have kids with multiple names, I put them in the same team. Because if I have to go through the whole year and be like, no, Braden, you're in this group, not that group, I'm just like, no. So both Bradens are in the same group, so it just makes it easier for me and easier for them to remember, wait, which Braden is in strings? You're both in strings. You know, like anytime I have doubles, I put them in the same team just to make it easier for myself and for all of us. So that's sort of how I put kids into groups. And then it's pretty easy to teach once I get started. I've done this before a couple years. So kids who come back know that I'm going to do this. And they're like, ooh, what group am I going to be in? So when I'm teaching it to them, they like know that it's coming. My kids who are new, the first time I teach it to them, I give them this sort of explanation. I talk about how all the instruments in the world can sort of be grouped into one of these different 4 families. I pull out these super duper old posters. I think the brand is called Bomar. They're super, super, super old, right? And I think they say like 1961, yeah, on them. So these were on the wall at my school when I was growing up in my elementary school. And so we just sort of look through and talk about the very first day about quick similarities and differences. You know, so brass, it's really easy to see like, oh, well, they're all sort of the same color. They're all metal. You can start talking about some of those similarities that you find. Another one, woodwinds, you could say, you know, they're all sort of the same shape. They all have different characteristics that make them the same. They all have many holes along the side of the instrument. They're all almost that's one straight shape. They all have a mouthpiece that's different than a brass mouthpiece. I actually have a whole resource in my TPT store called the Instrument Families that I can use to go through if I'm really trying to teach this content. But at the beginning, when I'm just trying to teach, you know, what family do you belong to, I don't go into all the intricacies. I just use these posters as like a quick reference to sort of get that idea of, well, they're similar for certain reasons. Posters like this are really helpful too. They can see instruments like in different sizes that look very similar. So the very first time I introduce it in 2nd grade, I don't go through in depth. That in-depth resource I just mentioned, the Instrument Families resource, I use that later on, but I don't do it the very first time. I just use that these posters like the first time to sort of give them an explanation to help them understand, and then we just jump into the activities to help them know what family they're in. Another visual you might want, I have these. I made these many years ago. And I don't really have room in my classroom now, so I'm actually thinking about putting these up in the hallway. But I have, let's see if I can get it out. Many years ago, I made these instrument flags. It's sort of like bunting. And so, like the percussion family, there's one big flag for the name percussion, and then there's like a flag for each instrument. And I just put them on, it's sort of like really thin rope or like a thick sort of a twine or yarn, and I use these and I put them up above like into like a really high space where like I'm not going to decorate or use very often, so it's really it makes the room more inviting and decorative. It's fun because it looks like the bunting and the flags they see in other places, but it also teaches the content. And you might notice, oh my gosh, what? The colors match the Bomar posters. So like woodwinds is yellow, brass is red, percussion is green, strings is blue. I love to color code. So, but these posters really do help kids as well. And this is something that usually is up in the classroom. It just doesn't have room in my room right now. So like I said, I'm going to try when I have some free time to put them out in the hallway. That's my plan. Okay, so how do I teach them what family they're in? Well, the first day that I introduce this, or the first day we try or we learn our new families, I just go through and I like read from the roster. And because my room has these 4 lines with the different colors, yellow for woodwinds, red for brass, blue for strings, green for percussion, it's really easy for me to say, go sit with your family. Go sit anywhere on your family line. Anywhere you want to sit on that line is great. You just sit in that spot. I don't give them assigned seats within their family. I let them choose. And then they can sort of shuffle around and move on that line a little bit, but they're not going to move too far because they have to stay on that line. So because they know the color coding happens, they'll know where to go. And then I have a little song that anytime we're in the class throughout the year and I want them to move to their family spot, I do. Find your family in a 1, 2, 3. Find your family in a 1, 2, 3. Find your family, find your family, find your family in a 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it's a head and shoulders, baby. 1, 2, 3. Head and shoulders, baby. 1, 2, 3. Head and shoulders, head and shoulders, head and shoulders, baby. 1, 2, 3. It's just really simple, but I changed the words to find your family, and then they know to go to their family spot in the room. So that's where they go when they do it. The first time I'm teaching them their family groupings, I do a couple little games to help them keep coming back to that thing to remind sort of where they go. So 2nd grade, 3rd grade, I do this activity where I get my temple blocks. And I've got my temple blocks, and I say, okay, there are 2 parts to this game. The first part, you're going to hear a sound from the temple blocks. And when you hear that sound, you're just going to walk the way that sound has you move, or maybe not walk, maybe do something else. So you're just going to walk, bum, bum, and you can leave your family spot. You can go anywhere throughout the room that's a safe place to go. So this is fun because it's like reteaching their families, but also then is showing them where can they go in the room. You can't go behind the teacher desk, can't go up on the ramp up to the stage or whatever. But it's doing a couple things, teaching them the space, but also teaching their family. So they walk. When the sound stops, I'm going to give you a word. And whatever word I give you, that's how you have to move to get back to your family line, to be back with your team. So if you're, strings, you're going to listen for my word, and then you're going to move back to the blue line. If you're percussion, you're going to listen for my word. You're going to move back to the percussion line. So, if you're walking, walk, 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 and stop, and then I say Frankenstein. Well, then you got to walk not Frankenstein, zombie. You got to walk like a zombie to get back to your spot. Or maybe I'll say, what else could I say? Maybe I'll say cat, and then you got to walk like a cat back to your spot. Or maybe I'll say movie star, and you got to walk however you think a movie star is going to walk back to their spot. I do this with 2nd and 3rd grade. They eat it up. So a couple of things for the walking. I could do walking. I could walk fast. I could do a pattern. That's fun to see how they adapt to that. I could do skipping. I could do galloping. I could give them something to really challenge them. How are they going to move for that? It's fun to see how they do it. I could do tiptoe. I just sort of have fun and go crazy with that. But then I also have to think, what's my word going to be? So a couple words that I've tried, the words to get them to move back to their space. I've done pro football player. I've done movie star. I've done act like your younger brother or sister, act like your older brother or sister. Those are hilarious to see the differences there. I've done animals, all different kinds of animals. I've done teacher. I've done you just drank a whole Mountain Dew. That one I usually don't do very often because they act real crazy. All sorts of things. You could do whatever you want. And the last one I do is you're a slug. And that one's hilarious to see them move back to their spots. So I do that with 2nd and 3rd grade, but it's walk away, move away, you're moving through the room, and then how do you go back to your spot? You got to move however I say. That's a really fun one. The other thing I've done to help kids remember and reinforce which team they're on, which family they're in, I have them in their family groups, and I say, okay, you got to come up with your secret family handshake. And so, for example, maybe you do shake, hit, back of your hand, fist bump, high five, spin, and kick, or maybe you do hip, elbow, high five, middle 5, low 5, spin around, back 5. I don't know. Or maybe you do elbow, knee, foot, hands in, go, So you got to come up with whatever handshake you want to do. And I've thought about like finding the video of the handshake from like the Parent Trap that they do, that like crazy like bump 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 bump, you know, whatever. But kids like get it. They don't need that, but I could show that if I wanted, but they don't really need it. So I like to give them this assignment, and I say you got 8 minutes to come up with a secret handshake for the family, but it's not really secret because you're going to show the class. But like you got a few minutes. It's fun to see what they come up with. My only rules for this are everyone has to be able to participate. So there's always going to be that kid, and I tell the class this, there's always that kid who's like, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to start with a triple backflip. Then I'm going to do a gainer off Mr. Rao's computer. And then we're going to kick each other, and I'm going to land on my finger, and we're going to, no, you can't do that because it's too crazy. Everyone has to be able to do it. You all have to be able to participate. The second thing I say is, if you can work the name of your family into the handshake, you get extra points. I'm not giving out points, but I say you get extra points. They don't know. So, you know, if you're doing like a high five, you could be like, STRINGS, go Strings, or whatever. Just, again, to reinforce what team they're on, to get them to be a little bit more excited, interesting, creative, I don't know. But this whole idea of the handshake is like, I did not realize how well it was going to go over, but it's gone over super well. 4th grade, 5th grade, they love it. They're all very creative. They're super interesting. It's hilarious. They don't need a ton of time to do it, but they have so much fun with it. Okay, so that's how I do with 2nd grade, 3rd grade, the little movement game. You could maybe do that with other grades. 4th grade, 5th grade, we do the handshake. I don't do this whole idea with kindergarten and 1st grade. We got so much to do anyway that I would spend more time probably reminding them what their family is than actually being able to use that. So I usually started in 2nd grade and use it throughout 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. I refer to their family spots all the time, or their family teams or whatever. So then when we actually learn about a new instrument, hey, what family does this belong to? Or, you know, we learn a new thing. Oh, that person plays strings, okay, or plays violin. What family is that? You know, it helps reinforce the content, but it also is great for classroom management. So it's something that I've done for many, many years, and I am very happy about how it's turned out. One last thing is that at the end of every day, or, you know, if we're choosing instruments or we're doing whatever, I have a family of the week. So every rotation, I just rotate through. So this last week it was percussion. So then next week when they come to me, when it's a new rotation, maybe it'll be strings or brass or whatever. So I always say, like, if we ever get out instruments, the family of the week gets it first. Or if we're leaving, you know, going to PE or going back to our classroom, the family of the week gets to go first. If we have any other special sort of whatever, the family of the week gets to do it first. But I always rotate with every rotation. So we have an A through E schedule. Anytime we hit A, I move to a new family. It's just a way for me to make sure that everybody gets a chance at it, but it's another way to reinforce that family thing. We line up to leave on our family lines. So it's sort of a cool, helpful thing along the way. Let's see, does anyone have any questions? If you have any questions or like, hey, how do you do blah, 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 please drop it in the chat in the next few seconds, because I'm gonna finish up here in just a second. Cool, doesn't look like any questions right now. If you do have more questions, or you think like, hey, I'd love to try this, but I'm not sure. I do have a blog post about this on my blog, makemomentsmatter.org. You can also leave a comment in this video and I'll see it and I'll come back to it and try and answer that as best I can. A couple of the things that I referenced, so these instrument family, this instrument family bunting, these are in my Teachers Pay Teachers store if you're interested. They come in like 4 or 5 different styles if you're interested in that. I do have that resource about the instrument families if you want to just teach about that specific thing. And the resource that I have gets pretty in-depth. It's got a bunch of PowerPoints. It gets really into the why of different groups. You know, why is this a woodwind and not a brass? Well, it's about these, you know, 4 key clues or whatever. So I didn't really get into that into this video because that's not what the purpose of these families are, but I do spend time in my class doing that just a little bit later on in the school year. Okay, if you have questions or other great ideas about, hey, you're already doing this with instrument families, you should do XYZ. Like I said, please leave a message or shoot me an email. I'd be more than happy to answer a question or get your great idea. I'm sure it'd be awesome to add to what we're already doing. Okay, I hope I'll see you all next Monday night for another Musical Mondays live video. But thanks for coming and joining me in my classroom today. It was great to have you with me. Bye, everyone.